Breaking news and stimulating talk. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
KVNU News Time is 5:03. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Logan Extermination. Mortgage rates have reached 8%. The national average for a 30-year fixed loan crossed that threshold on Wednesday, according to Mortgage News Daily, a closely watched site that publishes national averages each day. Rates have not hit a level not seen in more than 2 decades, which has caused demand for mortgages to dip even further. Joel Kahn, Vice President and Deputy Chief Economist at the Mortgage Bankers Association, said in a statement Wednesday that applications decreased to their lowest level since 1995. Both purchase and refinance applications declined, driven by larger drops for conventional applications. Dejan Eskick, who studies the housing market at the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute, explained that seeing mortgage rates reach 8% further ices out the housing market, with fewer homes expected to be listed for sale as a result. The latest RE/MAX housing report released this week showed that while inventory has been climbing recently, the number of homes for sale in September across the U.S. was still down more than 8% compared to the year before. The same report showed active inventory in the Salt Lake City market was up from August to September, although the number of new listings declined slightly over the same period. KVNU News Time is 5:04. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies, overnight low in the mid-40s, and then sunny, mid-70s, around 74 tomorrow, sunny and around 73 on Saturday. It's been to 72. It's 72 degrees right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Maple Creek Ranch. Exciting news, the asphalt is now complete on all roads. Come see the fall colors and see what mountain living is all about. 2.5-acre lots are available to build your dream home. Go to maplecreekranch.net.
Hi there, we're your new neighbors, the Voles. I'm Horrible, and this is my wife, Terrible. Hi! It's been such a great summer, we gotta have an army of children. Now we're fixing to tear up your yard. The only warning sign of us is some surface tunneling holes, and then boom! Yard death! What do you think? Should we get started, Ma? Yep. These guys aren't going to call the troops at Logan Extermination.
Voles are a problem. They can tear up your lawn and garden. But there is something you can do. Call Logan Extermination at 752-8450.
KVNU News Time is 5:06. The judge has ordered TikTok to comply with a series of subpoenas issued by the state of Utah. If not, the company risks a contempt of court citation. 3rd District Court Judge Mark Korus gave TikTok a pair of November and December deadlines to comply with the state's subpoenas. In a statement, TikTok said they have been responding and continue to respond to the state's requests for documents and information. Utah's Department of Commerce and its Division of Consumer Protection sought to enforce subpoenas seeking information in the state's long-running investigation into social media companies. They accused TikTok of not complying with several subpoenas demanding information about the company and how it caters to youth. Attorneys for TikTok denied they have refused to comply, saying they were in the process of providing information. Judge Korus noted that some of the process was unusual. The state sued last week, alleging TikTok has violated consumer protection laws by crafting addictive algorithms that harm the mental health of youth and misleading investigators about its operations. Bowman argued that when the lawsuit was filed, some of the state's demands were made moot. Governor Cox and Attorney General Sean Reyes have gone after social media companies, accusing them of harming the mental health of youth. And Utah's top court is taking up a very unique case regarding the constitutionality of a teenager sentenced to life in prison without parole. In 2001, Morris Mullins pleaded guilty to the murder of 78-year-old Amy Davis. Just 17 years old at the time, Mullins was sentenced to life without parole. Assistant Solicitor General Jeffrey Mann said Mullins admitted his guilt by pleading guilty and for his horrific crimes and was sentenced to life without parole over 20 years ago. On Wednesday, Mullins' case was brought up at the Utah Supreme Court. The question on appeal was the court wrong in finding that the sentence was not cruel and unusual, asked by Mullins' attorney, Benjamin McMurray. McMurray argued that the Utah legislature abolished a juvenile being sentenced to life without the possibility of parole in 2016. Following a similar case, he also brought up Mullins' troubled childhood and developmental challenges, which justices questioned in relation to committing a murder. Meanwhile, Justice Diane Hagan asked whether a premeditated, violent attack on an elderly woman in her home is the kind of crime that reflects transient immaturity. McMurray suggested his client did not have a chance to learn right from wrong. The justices took the case under advisement but offered no timeline on when they may issue a ruling, knowing that whatever they decide could impact a number of cases statewide. KBNU News Time is 5:09. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Are you in need of excellent surgical care? Budge Clinic General Surgery offers the future of surgery with state-of-the-art robotic-assisted procedures. From cancer treatments to surgical needs, they've got you covered. Call Budge Clinic General Surgery today, 435-716-1950, to schedule a consultation and experience the best possible outcome. Trust Doctors Anderson, Marshall, McKenna, and Peterson, the experts at Budge Clinic General Surgery, helping people live the healthiest lives possible.
With the arrival of fall, potential heavy rainstorms, fallen leaves, and debris, the Cache Stormwater Coalition would like to remind you of a few things to be mindful of. Clean out all the leaves and debris from your rain gutters. Use a broom or rake to remove leaves and debris from the top of storm drains, as clogged storm drains can lead to flooding. Don't keep piles of yard waste in your yard, on the sidewalk, or street. Use a green waste recycle bin, and check with your local city office on where to place collected leaves for pickup. And when it snows, remember to keep the snow away from curb and gutter and storm drains. We can all make a difference if we do our part. Brought to you by the Cache Stormwater Coalition.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
What is dedication?
My daughter is biological and my son is adopted. I love them both so much. From the morning when you wake up to putting them to bed at night and every moment in between. I think a parent's job is to protect our children but also prepare them for the world so they become good, kind human beings.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. It is hour two of today's show. Our listeners can be very funny sometimes. A listener just texted, or I just saw the text, came in around 5 o'clock through the online chat. Listener said, I stopped talking about the cold weather coming next week. I'm living happily in denial this weekend. I encourage that. I do. The transition to fall has always been kind of a tough one for me. I have a hard time letting go of summer. This year, the transition was a little easier because it's been a milder, transition to fall, to say the least. And So I'm not complaining. But I get it. I totally understand. If you want to live in denial, you've got until about next Wednesday, maybe Thursday, to live in denial before you're going to have to accept the reality that the summer weather is over. But I'm wearing shorts and a T-shirt today, just living the dream. So appreciate.
Yeah, we're not gonna take it with this forecast. We're just
Yeah.
Well, that's next week anyway.
Yeah, that's. I think that's absolutely a very fair thing to live in denial. So I'm not blaming you at all. This is going to be I think. Well, I'm not sure this is going to be a controversial topic, but I think that. There's going to be a lot of disagreement on this. I think folks are going to be a lot of different opinions on this. It's about traffic and pedestrians. You heard the news story at the bottom of the hour, Bill, talking about this number of Utah pedestrians getting hit by cars spiking in Utah. And it's I think it's there's reasonable area for disagreement on this, but only to extent. It's sort of the data is conclusive. That's what I'm trying to say here, and the data presents a situation that could be spelled out as such. People are getting killed because of drivers and possibly because of car design. And that's what the data suggests. And it's not, there's not an argument to be had. It is absolutely the case. And the reason I say it this way is that I get frustrated sometimes. Now, I'm not a pedestrian often. It is always said, and this is great advice, especially, if you're going out trick-or-treating or going out in any way at nights during the season, Halloween, wear something reflective. I saw a gentleman walking a dog the other night on a little 2-lane road with no real big shoulder, and the dog on the road. Actually, I had to swerve around the dog, and he's dressed in all black. Nothing, not even a white sock to reflect my headlights.
Oh man, that's not smart.
Yeah, that's just inviting a problem. Just a dumb decision. Don't do that. Throw on a yellow shirt. You can get for $5 at Walmart and anywhere really, Amazon. You can get these little reflective vests that you are light enough you don't even know you're wearing them. Runners wear them. Something like that is such an easy thing to do. One other thing I'll throw out there before we get into the data, pedestrians. When you look at the data, one type of car pedestrian collision that pedestrians do, I think, shoulder the burden or the blame for is the unmarked crosswalk street crossing. There's a reason they mark crosswalks, and believe it or not, 3 or 4 times this year, I've seen people doing this at the south end of Main Street before the Y. I've seen people jogging across from all those new restaurants on the west side, headed over to the sidewalk that then goes up to the Riverwoods Conference Center River Walkway. And I've seen them jogging into the median and then waiting for more cars. This is a really good way to get killed, in my opinion. It's 45 there coming south.
Which means many people are going 50 or higher.
Most likely. That stoplight, unless a pedestrian hits the button to cross, that stoplight doesn't change. So they've been able to build up their speed to 45 for 100 yards before where I saw these gentlemen jogging across without a crosswalk. And then the other direction, they do have a light, so they're a lot of times not going 45 coming north into town through that Y intersection. But if the light's green, they are going about 45 or 50. So that type of thing is 100% on pedestrians. and I won't have it. I have some friends in the walkable cities movement in Salt Lake trying to, say, and I agree with them that cities should be more open to closing certain streets to cars entirely in downtowns. I think it's a great idea for Center Street one day, and definitely a good chunk of Salt Lake's downtown having a walkable strip from the City Creek Mall down south a few blocks. I think would be amazing for downtown Salt Lake, but. And there's resistance to that, and they'll often respond, we're so car-centered. And I agree, we are too car-centered, especially in our downtowns. But if you're a pedestrian jogging across a 4-lane highway, the speed limit 45 miles per hour, you're to blame. If you're hit by a car, you're to blame in that scenario. So those are two scenarios: mid-block crossing or crossing without a crosswalk. Let's put it that way, and then also out on some of these county roads are a great example in the outward part of the valley. And you're wearing all black, nothing reflective out there, barely on the shoulder because there's barely a shoulder. You're just inviting trouble. So those are two. Everything else. This is the reality that some people, I think, struggle to accept, myself included. Everything else is the fault of the person driving the car. So here's what the data says. So here in Utah, the story today, again, Jason Metman, communications manager with the Utah Department of Public Safety, said the public should be alarmed about the numbers they're seeing. To call it a spike is almost an understatement. There have been 663 pedestrian crashes. That means a pedestrian and a car collided this year. 663. And 26 of those took a life. 26 of those, the pedestrian was killed. That's Utah Department of Public Safety data. Drivers, in response to this, if you look at the Facebook commentary and if you look at interviews that are sometimes done on the news, drivers will almost always blame the pedestrian. And again, I've cited two situations where the pedestrian is at fault. Crossing without a crosswalk, mid-block, walking along the side of the road wearing all black, nothing reflective. Even with good headlights, driver may not see you until the last minute and might not have options to do anything at that point. And so you and the dog you're walking are now under the wheels. It's something easy to avoid for the pedestrian. But only in those two scenarios is the pedestrian actually to blame. And of these 663 pedestrian crashes this year that led to 26 fatalities, only 70 of them, so roughly 600 still left, only 70 of them involved the pedestrian doing something dumb, like crossing mid-block or not wearing reflective clothing walking on a shoulder in the dark or in the rain, one of them, in fact. So pedestrians could have made better decisions in those scenarios, obviously. The other 600, the driver's fault. That's the reality that people need to let settle in here. Now, there are some additional data that could lend clues into why drivers are hitting so many pedestrians. Data that shows that most of these pedestrian collisions where a driver strikes a pedestrian in a crosswalk in the middle of the day, where the driver just didn't see them, which is the driver's fault if they're in a crosswalk with a walk signal. Left-hand turns, that's an obvious one. Distracted driving, a lot of data showing that the driver was fiddling with the touch screen, texting, on a phone call, just in general not paying attention, hit a pedestrian, and in some cases killed that pedestrian. Impaired driving, obviously drunk driving, other things like that. Speed and rolling stops, though, were the two largest contributors. Driver driving too fast for the roadway or the road conditions and unable to stop for a pedestrian in a legal crosswalk with a crossing sign. Rolling stops where someone comes up to the intersection looking left to see if there's any traffic and they don't really stop. They see no traffic's coming in that direction and they punch it, only to realize that a pedestrian with a walk signal has stepped into the intersection and they tag him. I saw this happen in front of me in Salt Lake City, headed to a Jazz game once. So drivers, you are at fault. pedestrian fatalities, pedestrian collisions, by far the majority, the fault of drivers. Now, there is some additional research into some other things. In fact, I posted a link to this story that was published in July this year by data analysts, and they published this. An analyst named Maren Kogan, who is she works. She does a lot of stuff. She does data analytics for ESPN, New York Magazine, GQ, and she had an op-ed at Vox this summer, Vox.com, where she breaks down some of the data from the Governor's Highway Safety Association and the National Highway Traffic Safety. Anyway, I'm not even going to try. Their data shows that this is 2022 data, and she wrote this in July of 2023 after the data was published. The preliminary report, she says, shows that there may be a couple of contributors. Distracted driving, speed, definitely the largest contributors. But she says vehicle design may also be a big part of this. And she points specifically at the big flat-nose design of some SUVs and midsize and full-size trucks. And she actually posts a video that shows you how far out from your grill your blind spot gets in some of the newer model Fords, Chevys, and every newer model SUV. Well, not every. The Hyundai SUV actually has a slant to the nose, so they got a pass. But a lot of these square nose SUVs meant to look larger. That's a popular thing right now, to look big and manly. That extends your blind spot from 6 feet to, in some cases, 16 feet. Meaning that most children under the age of 11, you're not going to see if they've stepped into the crosswalk in front of you. That is sobering. But again, the data is conclusive. Only a small number of the vehicle pedestrian collisions in Utah and nationally every year are the fault of the pedestrian. By far, the majority, 6-1, are the fault of the driver of the car. 753-5868. We'll be back right after this.
Hey, HR directors, open enrollment is right around the corner. It's time for a fresh look at your employee benefits. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance and Alera Benefits. We are a local agency with national resources and multiple options. Give us a call. You got nothing to lose and everything to gain. Call Quality First Insurance and Alera Benefits today, 435-752-0101.
Hi, everybody. This is Gary Sullivan from At Home with Gary Sullivan. I hope you can join us this weekend where we take calls about your home projects. Plus, got some great tips on patching your concrete, painting, fixing up the deck, and even increasing the curb appeal of your home. Really hope you can join us this weekend. There's a lot of great information to help you protect the biggest investment of your life. At Home with Gary Sullivan.
Saturday nights at 7 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Kind of an extreme suggestion from a listener here in response to the data and the story today from Utah Department of Public Safety. The story again, nearly 700 pedestrian vehicle crashes here in Utah, and the data showing that only 60 of those could be blamed on the pedestrian, not wearing reflective clothing, crossing without a crosswalk, or crossing in a crosswalk when they didn't have a walk sign. The rest of those, 6-1, caused by drivers being inattentive, drivers who couldn't see because the hood of their vehicle is too large and blunt by design, drivers going too fast, drivers doing rolling stops where they're only looking one way, don't realize a pedestrian with a walk sign has stepped into the intersection in front of them. So many different scenarios that can pop up, but the point again is you hear it all the time. Oh, pedestrians, they should be wearing bright clothing. They should be carrying little flags when they cross the street. All those are good ideas. And if you're a pedestrian, you should. I mean, what are you going to do? Be belligerent and say, no, it's the driver's fault when a pedestrian gets hit. I'm not going to take steps. No, take steps. That's smart for a pedestrian. Don't get killed by a car. But the data shows the blame rests 6-1, again, on drivers. And you can blame some of it on vehicle design, but even that, it should not be an excuse. This is bad driving, and it's costing lives. I don't have, a listener asks how many of the nearly 700 pedestrian crashes and 26 fatalities in Utah last year, or this year so far, sorry, not last year, were children. I don't know. National data shows that it's about 2-1 for children. So, 2/3 of the vehicle pedestrian crashes in the United States every year are children under the age of 18. I asked what listeners would suggest we do. There's pressure on federal regulators and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to institute higher or stricter safety standards in vehicle design, to get rid of those big square blocky and personally I think ugly grills that are popular right now on full-size, mid-size trucks, SUVs. I think they just look bad, and they're the opposite of aerodynamic. They're horrible for your fuel mileage, and personally I think they're ugly. That's one route. That's years down the road solution. What can we do now? Drivers just realizing they're more likely going to be at fault if a pedestrian is killed, and thinking more about what they're doing behind the wheel, being distracted, watching your speed, just generally looking out more for pedestrians and unexpected things like a kid running into the street. Listener sends this in, said we should do what the Dutch did, and a link. I call this extreme, but maybe it's not. It seems kind of extreme to me, but in the Netherlands in 1970, pedestrian fatality rates were climbing. In fact, in 1971, 3,300 people were killed in the Netherlands by cars, and 400 of them were children on their way to or from school. And the Dutch public revolted. It was an all-out nationwide protest over and over again for months. The movement was called Stop de Kindermoord, Stop the Child Murder. And these were large protests, mainly in Amsterdam and other large cities in the Netherlands. And the result was the government instituted some new things. There are now, car-free days throughout the Netherlands. There are days where cars are not allowed on the roadways, just a few each year. They always have physical bike lanes, not painted bike lanes. And then this is an interesting one. We could actually do this. This wouldn't be too extreme, but they actually made downtowns and crowded areas more pedestrian-centered rather than car-centered. I think there's an opportunity to go in that direction a bit in our major cities, even here in Utah, and even our smaller cities eventually. This is the one that intrigues me the most, though. They closed roads for kids going to school and coming from school. So when school is, so an hour before school starts and an hour after school stops or it's let out, roads from the schools would be closed to cars. They actually put permanent gates in to stop traffic. These gates would come down an hour before school started and not go up until 10 minutes after school started. And then they'd come down again 10 minutes before school was to be let out and stay down for an hour after school was to be let out. And it provided major roadways for kids to walk and bike, 4 or 5 blocks at least from the school before they were actually in traffic. And they noticed this worked. So all of you parents out there picking your kids up one by one, lines and lines of cars there in Nibley, I see every day around 3, maybe consider something different. Maybe talk to planners at your school and with the counties and the cities, and talk about some of these things we could do. To reduce the number of cars around travel to and from school time. Looking at the data again, showing clearly that drivers and cars are to blame 6-1 for pedestrian fatalities, most of which are children, or at least a majority of which are children. The number of cars on the roads during those times, traveling to and from school especially, one of the biggest contributors. I don't know what the solution is, because a lot of this would require lifestyle and preference change. But the data is pretty glaring here in Utah and nationally. Check it out. I've posted a link to all of these stories on our Facebook page. If you'd like to comment, if you have suggestions, 753-5868. We'll be back after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:33. After weeks of negotiations, the Logan Redevelopment Agency has cleared another hurdle in the creation of the 1400 North Main Street Community Reinvestment Project area. Acting in their capacity as the Logan RDA, the members of the Logan Municipal Council voted on Tuesday to give their approval to interlocal agreements between Cache County, the Logan School District, and the City of Logan for the diversion of property taxes for the area of the Cache Valley Mall and adjacent property to the south. Those diversions of tax increments on that property will fund the Logan RDA's plan to redevelop the 1400 North Main Street area. That plan includes demolition of the current mall structure and construction of a proposed more than $200 million Cache Valley Marketplace redevelopment project. The projected future taxable value of the mall area and adjacent properties is estimated at $285 million, according to Kirk Jensen, the city's economic development director. The approved diversions of funds will come from the increased tax revenues on that property. The proposed 1400 North Main Community Reinvestment Area is bounded by Main Street on the west, 1400 North on the north, 200 East on the east, and 1000 North on the south. That area includes the current site of the now mostly vacant Cache Valley Mall and adjacent commercial properties. Jensen has previously explained that all the taxing entities affected by the project are required by state law to provide their consent to the project going forward. Members of the Cache County Council gave their consent on August 8th. Mayor Holly Dane said that Cache County and the Logan School District gave their approvals on October 12th. The total taxable value of properties within the proposed reinvestment area is now $48 million, in which the city of Logan has a 12% tax increase. The Logan School District has a 74% interest, in Cache County a 14% interest. At a previous meeting, the Logan RDA approved a budget of $13.5 million for the reinvestment area over a period of 20 years. KVNU News Time is now 5:35.
There are more signs that Israel may be readying troops for a ground invasion into Gaza. ABC's Matt Gutman in Tel Aviv.
The one message I'm getting unanimously from Israeli officials, military, political as well, is that this is going to be a long war. There will be many casualties on both sides. So what we've been seeing so far, 1,400 dead in Israel, over 3,500 Palestinians killed. This is just the beginning, and they're talking about months here, and perhaps a campaign lasting for years down the future.
Israel's defense minister telling IDF forces that they will soon see the inside of Gaza. The nation's agriculture minister telling ABC News that the underground tunnels, which are used by Hamas, could be a top priority. President Biden will discuss the U.S. response to Israel when he speaks to the nation in about a half an hour from now. He's expected to ask for billions of dollars in aid to the Jewish state and for Ukraine. With continuing coverage, Israel-Hamas war. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
And KVNU will bring you the president's remarks at 6, courtesy of ABC News. In other local news, there is a lot of excitement with the Polar Bear Drive-In returning to Preston. For over 50 years, the Polar Bear on State Street was a favorite place to grab a burger, fries, and a milkshake. The Polar Bear return joins other comebacks for the nostalgic 50s-style car hop diners across the U.S. Back in 1952, Bry Larson began selling hot dogs, and 4 years later, he added a grill and fryer and drink dispenser. That's when the famous Polar Bear hamburgers began. For years, the eating establishment employed Preston High School students, and it became a hangout for the younger crowd while still catering to families. Steve Larson joined the family business in 1975 with his father to keep the culinary haven alive for another generation. The place eventually closed in 2005. Sawyer Hemsley, a Preston native and co-founder and CBO of Crumble Cookies, is the driving force in bringing the drive-in back. They are renaming the drive-in Polar Bear Eats. Ashley Brinton, the chief of staff for Hemsley Ventures, is the spokesperson for the Polar Bear Project. She said they're bringing a lot of the original recipes back. There will be no inside dining. There are 4 ways to order. There's a walk-up window, a drive-through window, car hop service, or orders can be called in and delivered to the door. The Polar Bear is just one of the many Hemsley Ventures in Preston as the family continues to breathe new life into downtown Preston. The company owns several downtown properties and has the Grand Preston Theater project coming soon, according to their website. KVNU News Time is 5:38. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies. Overnight low tonight down into the mid-40s. And then tomorrow, another sunny day, around 74 for the high. And then sunny around 73 on Saturday. It's been to 72. It's 70 right now at KVNU. Maple Creek Ranch has exciting news. The asphalt is now complete on all roads. Come see the fall colors and see what mountain living is all about. Go to maplecreekranch.net for more information. You can always get more news at cachevalleydaily.com.
Elements has delicious lunch specials. Soup, salad, and bread for just $10 is tasty and quick. Elements lunch menu is full of scrumptious items. Wood-fired pizzas are an excellent choice that include barbecued chicken and the bee's knees. The fresh battered halibut fish and chips with seasoned fries is always a hit. And don't forget the fan favorite, Chipotle fried chicken sandwich. Thursdays, enjoy Elements house-made smoked brisket. Casual or professional. Open Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 8 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11:30 to 9. Visit theelementsrestaurant.com for reservations.
The Cache Valley Media Group Logan Holiday Gift Show is presented by Coppins Hallmark Friday and Saturday, November 3rd and 4th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. It's the perfect place to kick off your holiday shopping. Ideas and treats for the entire family. Clothing, books, jewelry, purses, home and holiday decor, baby items, and don't miss everyone's favorite guest, Santa. The Logan Holiday Gift Show presented by Coppins Hallmark Friday and Saturday, November 3rd and 4th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Start your holiday shopping off right.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. More reactions from listeners coming in here, so we'll stick with it. If you'd like to join us, 753-5868. Talking about data discussed by Utah Department of Public Safety Communications Manager Jason Metman today, showing a spike in pedestrian vehicle crashes here in Utah. And so far this year, 26 fatalities. And data suggesting that other than in some cases where the pedestrian is clearly at fault, by far the majority of these driver caused. Speeding, inattentiveness, just in general being a bad driver. And some of these were children. A lot of these were children headed to school or from school. What should we do about it? National data suggests there are a lot of different possible contributors. Obviously, speeding, impaired driving, distracted driving. Vehicle design, though, is also something that's often cited. The current design, big, blocky, square-nosed SUVs and light trucks and full-size trucks that extend your blind spot in front of your vehicle from 6 feet to sometimes 16 feet. But from what I've seen, honestly, I lean towards just bad driving. People not paying attention, people driving too fast, people not even seeing stop signs. I've seen all of this year. In fact, there's a video circulating around the internet today that shows an 11-year-old kid just barely losing his life, crossing an illegal crosswalk with a walk sign when a driver doesn't see the red light, just blows through, doesn't even slow down, knocks this kid and his backpack down. That was just this morning that happened. What do you think? 753-5868. We do have Carrie on the line with some thoughts. Carrie, go ahead.
Yeah, there was something that they do in Taiwan that could have some applicability and certainly wouldn't solve the problem, but it might have a beneficial effect. They over there they have many scooters, and they had an interesting way of dealing with the scooters and the cars as you pulled up to an intersection. So as you pulled up the intersection, there was the line that was up front, and then there was a line behind. And the line behind is where the cars were required to stop. The scooters could go in front of the cars, and so it would kind of be like you're sitting there in your car, and you've got all of it like a beehive just going in and filling in with the scooters. But if there was a line that was back further from the crosswalk, it would potentially solve some of the visibility issues and may be helpful. Not a total solution, obviously.
That's interesting. That makes sense, though, actually. And I've never thought of that. But what you described, Carrie, having that that fill-in of the scooters, it kind of makes them more visible, more noticeable, and also safer at an intersection. And then also, I would assume, kind of facilitates things for regular car drivers, too. Once that light changes and they all go, the regular car drivers then have more of a straight shot of it as well. I like that idea. It's similar to, so in Utah now, as of a couple of years ago, it is legal for motorcycle drivers to, there's a word for it, I can't think of it right now, but they can creep up between those two cars at the crosswalk. They can't go in front of them into the crosswalk, but they can creep up between them. And one of the ideas behind this is that then the light changes, that motorcycle driver can get started and out of the way of all the cars before the cars can get started. I worry, though, sometimes I've seen some motorcycle drivers, as soon as that light turns green, just go. And what if you have that person running that yellow light? But for pedestrians, actually, your suggestion would work. I didn't know they did that there. Interesting. In Tokyo, huh?
Well, what was fascinating about it, you could have as many as 30, 40, 50 scooters in front of a car at an intersection if it was a long light or something like that. But they were really quite strict on the enforcement. I mean, if you pulled up to where the scooter place was and you were a car, the tickets were in the hundreds of dollars to deal with that, and just to make sure that the scooters had their priority. And so when the light changes, you've got this plethora of scooters in front of you if you're in a car.
That's interesting.
Anyway.
That's a great idea. I like that, Carrie. I'm glad you called to tell us about it. That's interesting. And also shows that we have some room to get creative about this. So thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Again, what Carrie's suggesting there shows, we have not tapped the idea well on things we could maybe do to improve this situation. Carrie, thanks again. We have another caller on the line, 753-5868, if you want to join us. Again, data showing that big spike in pedestrian accidents with cars here in Utah. 26 of those so far this year have been fatalities, many of them children. And data nationally from this shows conclusively it is rarely actually the pedestrian at fault. 6-1, these are driver caused. What do you think? Monty on the line. Monty, go ahead.
I just was going to say, I drive professionally. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I'm on the road a lot, and you'll get no argument from me that there's bad drivers. But if the objective is to save lives, I think that you could also do a lot by maybe some sort of the public awareness campaign to make pedestrians at least, I mean, it's almost like a defensive driving kind of technique, right? Like, I mean, if they just assume that they can walk safely into a pedestrian lane, there's a chance they're going to get hit. You know, it's like,
sure.
It's like, be aware, you know, wake up and I mean, most functioning adults that I know don't assume that everybody's going to stop for them as soon as they step into the crosswalk, right?
Yeah. Monty, it's an excellent point because, you know, even though, again, the data shows drivers are the cause of these accidents more often than not, 6 to 1, you're still not going to win that fight if you're a pedestrian, right? If you're not winning with a car, you're the one that's going to be hurt. So take steps. That's just common sense, right?
Yeah.
I've seen it. You've probably seen it a lot more than me, and I'd love to hear your stories, Monty, if you have any. But I have seen people. Now, this is in Salt Lake, but I was down there for an event recently, and I watched people. So a lot of these intersections in downtown Salt Lake, there's an audible sound when it goes green for you as a pedestrian, when it lights for you to cross. And I've seen people on their phones with a drink in their other hand, standing there with me, and the minute that sound starts, they start walking, not even looking up.
Oh yeah,
I would never do that.
Yeah, go up on campus sometime when classes are out. It's like nobody. I mean, everybody's got their face in their phone and they've got headphones on, and it's amazing. It's amazing more accidents don't happen.
That's well said, Monty. I thought the same thing. And a couple of those crosswalks right through that main strip through campus, I've seen that where, and what I usually think to myself is, well, you're brave. You know, it's good I was paying attention, but if a driver comes along that isn't, man, you're in some trouble. And that maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's not. And yes, the driver not being attentive is at fault if there is an accident, but you're still going to be hurt. You're still going to be, you don't win.
Yeah. You're not going to win even if you are correct. Or right. Yeah.
So just take some common sense steps. And Monty, always great to get the perspective of professional drivers because y'all see stuff that I'm sure you could write a book of some of the things you've seen.
Yeah. Something else.
If you do, let us know. We'll promote it here on the show.
Okay.
Sounds good. Monty, appreciate the call. Others out there, if you want to chime in, 753-5868. Monty brings up a really good point because I hear this. I've said this already. I'm going to say it again. I hear this. I have some friends who work in kind of the citizen activism kind of way in Salt Lake, and they're trying to get the city to close parts of Main Street in Salt Lake to cars so that there's more of a pedestrian strip coming down from City Creek a few blocks south. I think it's a great idea. One of their arguments is that, you know, having the cars there presents a danger to pedestrians and it discourages foot traffic and retail activity, and all of that's true. You know, you're having all that space for cars. You're allowing all these cars so that they can occupy 2 or 3 parking spots in front of each store. If you got rid of the cars, you'd probably have triple the foot traffic heading into those stores that those 2 parking spots could ever supply. It's a mindset that needs to shift in downtowns throughout the state, throughout the country in some cases. But as Monty said, the fact of the matter is those are great ideas. But I hear these friends of mine argue sometimes that, you know, people need to realize that, you know, they need to be more cognizant of the fact that roads are not just for cars. And I agree with that sentiment. But as Monty said, you know, you're the pedestrian. Accept the reality. You can complain about the reality. You can work to change the reality. You can remind drivers that they're most likely going to be the cause of a pedestrian's death, even a school child's death in a pedestrian car collision. Far more likely the driver will be at fault than the pedestrian. All of that is true. But common sense should tell you still, you don't just step into the roadway when the little signal comes telling you to walk. Common sense would tell you at least glance up from your phone and look left and right? To those pedestrians, you know, when you see a car come up to make a right-hand turn, I mentioned the rolling stop. That's a big contributor to pedestrian injuries. Fault of the driver. The driver is always cited, and it's bad driving behind this, entirely the fault of the driver. But as the pedestrian, when you see that car come up to make the right-hand turn, and maybe the light changes for you, the little walk guy lights up, and you see that driver making the right-hand turn isn't even aware that you're there, that they're looking left at the traffic coming and they're going to go as soon as they get an opening because they're in a hurry, maybe don't go yet if you're the pedestrian. Maybe recognize that scenario about to play out. We've all seen it. I've, to be honest, done it myself. I a long time ago, I came up to make a right-hand turn, south end of Main Street. I was turning to go north on Main Street. I've always been against those left-hand turns. But turning to go north on Main Street, I'm going to go around the block and make my way out of town. And I come up to it's a stop sign. I come up to the stop sign, and I'm watching traffic, looking to my left, watching traffic. I see my opening. I see it coming, and as soon as there's that break in traffic, I start to let out my clutch and go, and I nearly knock a guy off his bike. I slammed on my brake. I took it out of gear, jumped out to make sure he was okay, apologized to him. He was angry at me for good reason, and he pedaled on his way, and I went on my way. But it happens. And so if you're the pedestrian in that scenario, I'm not saying you're at fault. I was at fault in that scenario. I should have looked to see that someone on a bike was coming and known that crosswalk might be occupied. That's your responsibility as a driver, knowing that a small mistake on your part could kill a pedestrian while barely scratching your car. That's a responsibility more drivers need to accept as their own, definitely. But as Monty points out, as the pedestrian too, if you see a driver and they're looking to the left, waiting for their opportunity to make that right into traffic, and they haven't even looked at you, they're not even aware you're there, don't take the risk. You're not going to win with the car. So, yeah, room for everybody to use more common sense here, despite the fact, again, that the data does show clearly that all of us behind the wheel, all of us drivers, we need to accept the fact that it is 6-1. Again, that's what the data shows. It is most likely, far most likely, that we, the driver, are going to be the result of that pedestrian accident that could take a life. And all of us behind the wheel could be a lot smarter about our driving, too, when it comes to pedestrians. That said, one more time, you're going out to walk your dog at night or in the rain, and you throw all black on, man, you deserve to at least get mocked. Put something shiny on. Put something bright on. It is not hard to do. And I saw this just last week. So check out the data. I've linked to it all, including that Vox article I mentioned earlier on our Facebook page. And we'll be back right after this.
As the leaves fall, so do the prices at Murdoch Chevrolet. Harvest the best deals during our fall sales event. The summer heat is cooling off, and there's no better time to get out and drive. Receive 0% for 3 years, plus no payments for 90 days on a Silverado. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family. At Murdoch Chevrolet in Logan and Woods Cross, or online at murdochchev.com. Chevrolet, find new roads.
Call 866-628-3065 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 10/31/23.
My hearing started to go right around the same time my wife started naming off all the upgrades she wanted done on the house. I figured it was selective hearing. To be honest, I was actually pretty upset when it was suggested that I might need hearing aids, but ultimately I knew it was time for a change.
At Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology, we can help you regain the confidence that you're hearing life the way it was meant to be heard.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Visit CacheHearing.com for details.
The annual Cache Business Women's Conference is Wednesday, November 1st at the Riverwoods Conference Center. This year's theme is Building Together and will include learning, networking, fantastic food, and vendors. Keynote speakers are Becky Potts, Vice President of Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, Diana Sabo, new Director of Athletics at USU, and Rachel Cottom, Head of Content at Lexion. Tailored for women professionals and entrepreneurs, the Cache Business Women's Conference is Wednesday, November 1st. Register now at cachechamber.com. That's cachechamber.com.
Even though the weather's grown colder, you still have time to have your fruit trees pruned. Logan Extermination says your trees need to be trimmed back in order to achieve success next year. And this is the first step to a bountiful harvest. However, you could do more bad than good if you don't know what you're doing. Save the headache and call Logan Extermination today and get a jump on tree pruning. Prices will vary depending on your needs. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, a quick reminder, tomorrow, a very short For the People. We're here 4 to 4:30 only, so no movie show. Around 4:45, 4:50, we'll hand the reins over to our friends in St. George for Logan High football. Logan High taking on Dixie there, the number 20 school Logan and number 13 Dixie. That should be a good game. Tip off at 5.
Dixie Flyers,
Dixie
right?
Flyers, yeah.
I do think that's a cool name for a team.
I like that. But yeah, tip off at 5. So you'll have Logan High here on KVNU. Really quickly run through what's happening on the other stations as far as the playoff games go, because there's quite a bit actually out there tomorrow night. So Green Canyon and Park City 4A Girls Soccer Championship. This is at the America First Field, home of Real Salt Lake. They've renamed that. That's tomorrow afternoon at 2, broadcasting on 100.9 Light FM. I mentioned Logan and Dixie here on KVNU 102 FM and 610 AM. That tip-off at 5, pregame at 4:45 tomorrow, so a short For the People before that. Bear River traveling to Spanish Fork, 4A football opening round. That's at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, 104.9 The Ranch, and streaming, of course, at CashValleyDaily.com, video there. And finally, Mountain Crest and Tooele, 4A football opening round tomorrow night at 6 p.m. That will be streaming video on CashValleyDaily.com and broadcasting live on 107.7 FM. So there's your high school football lineup and girls soccer lineup for tomorrow afternoon. Coming up next, we'll bring you live the President's address. President Biden going to speak on both the situation in Israel and Palestine and the situation in Ukraine in a live public address. Starting in just a couple of minutes, we'll bring it to you live tonight. And when that wraps, Dave Ramsey will take over for the evening. That's next here on KVNU Logan.
When it's happening in Washington, when it's happening on Wall Street.
That's the reason why we're going to continue, because I believe there is a cause here.
News Talk KVNU Logan.